that because
go to a new city.
My daughter
find a new bar
from New York is here visiting from New York, and we were talking about how the company that did the pop-up bar in Manhattan also has one here in Orange County that they do.
Cool.
So if we're not in Manhattan, we're gonna do this one. So
How
she may be
cool.
there, we may be here, but we're gonna be FaceTiming.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that is a new
it.
tradition.
I
So.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like getting through the first. I think it's so. There are a few holidays in that first year that I like Easter was one of them. I didn't let the kids know it was Easter. We didn't leave the house. Like I did everything in my power to make sure they knew it wasn't Easter that year because I literally couldn't do anything that year. I couldn't deal with going to church with other families and being like, oh, we're here at church without Dad this year. There was like, how do I do these first holidays or same things we used to do with Dad around and now he's not here. So I had to erase some of them and get through them like they never existed. And then for some of them, we just did them without. We just created. But there was some instances like Christmas for us that had to be, or there were some instances like Valentine's Day for us and Christmas for you. We had to create a whole new tradition. And it was beautiful. And it's like, I think that's the good that you can take out of that. The first year is the hardest, getting through the first of everything. I remember that holiday period in general was just awful. I remember calling my parents in England, like, in the fetal position, like, how am I going to get through this? And my dad was like, we're coming out. We're going to come stay with you. And thank God they did. But I was just so overwhelmed with the concept of how do I get through the holidays without my ex-husband around and there are 3 young kids. But, through the strength and love from other single moms that have done it too, giving me suggestions on how to do things, I got through it. And I made my new own little fun traditions that we still carry out today. And every Christmas is different now. It was just Valentine's Day that stood out for me. That was like our own unique thing that we did that's never had anything to do with the previous. It's the new normal tradition.
Yeah. So while we were in New York, though, he was with his girlfriend. So
and was that plaguing you the whole time?
It did.
It
did. It was really tough. And I remember we were sitting in this one particular really awesome bar, and my son turned. He like leaned over to me and he's like, "You're not okay, are you?"
Did they know too
that he was with his girlfriend? Mm-hmm. I think they kind of deduced. I don't know if they knew. I don't know. I didn't talk to him about it, but
okay.
I talked more with my oldest daughter about the situation.
Right.
My youngest daughter, she's more like she doesn't want to be involved.
Right.
And my son, he's kind of the same too. And it's kind of a different relationship with the mother son than it is the daughter. And but he like leaned over to me and he's like, "You're not doing how are you, Mom?"
Something.
Yeah, and I so I shared with him. I said, "You know what?" I said, it's just like this is reality. Like reality is like really heavy right now. It's really, really heavy right now. And like I'm gonna be totally honest with you. It's like I don't know. Like I called it hope. Maybe it was just taking him for granted. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's like we're here and he's not because he's chosen to be somewhere else. I'm having a hard time with it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm sure my kids are having my kids are all very, very diplomatic. I mean, they have said that they didn't really realize how bad things were until they were all off. And on their own. And they, high tide covers a lot of rocks. When you have your kids at home, you're just dealing with like
you're hiding
everything,
a lot from them.
Everything. Well, I wasn't like necessarily hiding. I was just doing.
You're just not gonna right.
Like,
and they
I was just doing.
They
right?
weren't. My kids weren't exposed to any of that either. Like finally, my 14-year-old, I'm starting to share things here and there, but they didn't get exposed to any of that. They didn't see that. Like if you're a good parent, you're gonna shield them from that. It's not hiding light, it's shielding, protecting them, and it's better for them to be blissfully unaware.
Absolutely. Me, I love that they are blissfully ignorant, that I didn't burden them with all the heaviness, So that was kind of weird. I think probably the very hardest holiday that I dealt with was New Year's Eve. A couple of they're like, "Oh, let's go do this thing on the Queen Mary," and I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds like fun." And so we bought tickets and we went, and I didn't quite fully, I got caught in the moment. I'm like, yeah, it'd be fun to go with my, these people that I work with, but they're a couple, and we get to this event, and it's New Year's Eve, so like, everyone's a fucking couple. Everyone's a couple. And I was there.
That's officially the first event as a non-couple with couples.
Yeah. Yeah. It was being well, no, it wasn't the first event there, because I had been to like several events where I was doing this weird dance thing. Anyway, so.
But meaning like you were a single person around a lot of couples.
Like, well, the thing that messed with me was that I was a third wheel, knowing that he was not a third wheel somewhere wherever it was that he was at.
Yeah.
And it really kind of sucked. Mm-hmm. The upside to that is that I also had a group of friends who went to a different event that I didn't want to go to because it's going to be really cold. Mm-hmm. And after that event and my event, we all coalesced at my house, my condo at the time, because it was before I had to sell the condo. But we all coalesced at the condo, and we ended up having a fantabulous get together that lasted for 3 days. So New Year's Eve itself was really hard, but again, I was reminded again by God, the universe, or whatever, that we got you. Like, I got you. Don't worry about it. It's like like you may feeling like you're falling and you're hitting like cement, but you're not.
But people are going to catch
you. We're here, and we have you. So
that's cool.
So I was very, very blessed that way.
That's cool.
And then so the next thing was Valentine's Day for me wasn't really a big deal.
Yeah,
and like
it was never for us either. It was enough. I always wished it would be, but it never was. So that's why I decided to make it a big deal for me and the kids.
I think probably the hardest thing for me in this first year is my mindset of I've been replaced.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, so that was Valentine's Day was kind of a thing, because there was like this social group that I was part of, that I brought him into, and if I went, he was going to be there, and did I want to, like, it was like this whole, and then what if she was going to be there, and the whole feeling of being replaced that's probably been the worst part. I filed for legal separation. Had he just like signed the paperwork and we were separated and we went our own ways, it would have been fine. He refused to sign the paperwork because he wasn't going to do a pretend divorce. And but then he didn't. He also didn't want to do any of the things that would like bring us together, right? And then we got to the point where he met this other woman, and then it was like, okay, so you met somebody you were interested in. Great, like let's finalize it now. Like, let's do that. Like, let's, draw a line in the sand. But he didn't do that either. He, like, did this whole... And I allowed him to do it. I could have been the one that said, I'm out. But I really was never out. Like, I never wanted to be out. That wasn't why I left.
That's where you enter the realm of sick, just sick danceville, where you wanted out. Deep down, you needed to be out. Like, in the surface, you didn't want to be out. Who wants to be not a wife? Like, when you're married for so long, I remember thinking, I love being someone's wife. I don't want to not be someone's wife. I love her. Like, the concept of that was, but, yeah.
I wanted him, I truly held on to hope that he would become the person that I needed him to be.
Yes. Yeah,
and how unfair is that?
That's why everyone stays, because of that. Because they really make you think, and we probably do it to them too, to an extent. Like, I'll change how you need me to be. That's what we do. We want to consistently please the other person, and that's a good part of marriage. Like, putting the other person before ourselves in some format, right? Like,
but in order for me to be the person that he needed me to be, I would have to basically not be me.
Right. And that's...
Like, I would have to just roll over.
Right.
And like, I just couldn't do it.
That's where marriage gets a little sticky, I think, in where we clarify, because honestly, like we were saying in the other podcast, like, marriage definition wise is two become one. But when you lose yourself, per se, like, it's so easy for people to be like, oh, you know, when I was married to him or her, like, I lost myself. But that's what you do when you get married to somebody,
Right.
because two become one, and you become the thing that it's almost like you're not a single person. Two single people come together and you become a new twofer or whatever, a shim, a her, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just why it's so easy to be in that place. And
Okay, so back to the theme of the first year and how
Yes.
hard it is. Like,
yeah,
one of the things that I've struggled with so hard is that, like, that whole two become one. We were one.
you were.
Like, we were one.
Two souls become intertwined.
We were one
in marriage. That's what marriage is.
And
yeah,
to the extent that I knew when he was with her, like,
yeah, right.
I didn't. Nobody told me. I had no, like, there is no logical reason for me to know why that he was with her, but I could feel it. And
because it's like you guys have the same soul, almost like identical twins.
Like it was like this like umbilical cord between his heart and my heart.
Yeah.
And when he was with her,
you knew.
I felt the tug and the pull, and I felt like a physical pain.
Yeah.
That this thing was that he was pulling away from me. It was crazy. It was crazy, and so I would feel this thing, and then I would research, and I would validate that I was right. Like, and it's the craziest thing, and I hate it. I to this moment I hate it. I don't feel it quite as much as I did in the very beginning.
Good, you shouldn't.
But it was,
well, it's just crazy. Literally like identical twins. You've heard them in documentaries, right? And like when one has a stomach ache, the other one does too.
Yeah.
They're intertwined in that way. They were raised in the same womb. It's literally like they become one. Like they're like connected for life like that. And it's so true. It's spiritually, physically, like they talk about it all the way through the Bible. Like that's how God designed it, you know? And it's like, I mentioned it in the other podcast. It's like somebody said at church once, like, you got two single whole individuals that come together as one. And then when you separate, divorce, whatever, you ripped apart. So you're a half a person ripped in half. Mm-hmm. You're not going back again to a whole person that you were.
You're right.
You're one whole person torn totally and ripped into.
That is such a great visual, because that's
you're going to be torn and
that's
broken.
Honestly how I feel.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It speaks of that in the Bible. Like that's how it's a spiritual thing, and that's why I say like everyone's journey is different, but for me, it's been about 4 or 5 years till that cocoon has been built back to being a whole human being. And it's
the
still,
scab,
like what we say,
it's like a scab.
Yeah,
like,
scab. The scar tissue will always be there. Like I was a human, like person that was ripped apart, scab, and now there's a scar there. There's always a scar that will never be repaired. The scar, the healing's happened, but I'll never be the whole human being without a scar again, So there's a weakness that's always there. If something touches that weakness, it's going to hurt. Whereas if I hadn't been, if I was just a single whole person, that would not be there before. Like that's literally how it is.
That's a very good visual.
Yeah. And it helps you understand like, okay, I'm forever altered by this separation. That's okay. But just like any surgery or anything else, I'll heal from it, but I'll never be the same as I was before. I'll never be a single whole person. I'll be forever changed.
What makes it that way? Is that we had kids? Because I've had other significant relationships that broke apart, and I was able to maintain a civil. Like my kids grew up calling my ex-fiance, like he's such an integral part of our life. That was Uncle Phil.
Yeah,
like he was at our wedding.
Cool.
At our wedding, like
That's cool.
And it was normal and functional and to me, okay, great. So we weren't a good couple,
right?
But I love you, I don't not love you,
right?
Like, but I don't love you like that anymore,
yeah,
right?
No,
but I still have love for you, right? So, and I've maintained. I've only had 2 other significant relationships in my life, and I have that love and that